Welcome to Artists on Art. This week I talked to Mathias Kom, the man behind the band The Burning Hell. We talked about touring, living in the country, and how one song can surprise you and connect with fans all over the world.
Art, I want you. Art, you make it pretty hard not to. And my heart is trying hard here to follow you, but I can't always tell if I ought to.
Hi, Mathias.
Hello.
Thank you for coming out.
So good to be here.
I bet it's a bit busy over at your house right now, what with the springtime stuff and also, I don't know, prepping to go on tour again.
It's a bit hectic right now, yeah. I'm trying to juggle too many balls at once, and I'm a terrible juggler. For sure. But that's part of it. That's part of the gig, I guess, is being incredibly busy sometimes and then not busy at all other times, and trying to make a balance between the two.
Which of those do you prefer generally in your life? Do you prefer downtime or do you like to be busy?
I enjoy doing things, but I hate being busy in the sense that I hate feeling like constantly behind. And that tends to accompany being busy for me. It's very rare that I feel busy, but, capable of accomplishing everything that I'm busy with. It's like somehow like things just stack up and I end up taking on too much and then I feel overwhelmed. But at the same time, like I'm not great at relaxing. So when I have had downtime, I find ways to fill it. Granted with things that I love doing, but yeah. So I think I would prefer more downtime over being busy. Having said that, yeah, I would probably find all kinds of stuff to fill that downtime with if I had more of it. So
yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I really like I've actually made my life so that I do have a lot of just free time, but I find it really hard to totally relax. My free time is sitting for half an hour and then noticing all of the things that I haven't been doing in my house, and then I just start doing things, and one thing leads to another, and then I'm tired again.
Exactly. I mean, I'm curious if you feel the same way, but I find that like living in the country brings with it its own, sense of being busy all the time. Because, in my mind before I moved out to the country, I was like, oh, it'll be relaxing because it's the country, and that's what the country is. It's relaxing. But actually, there's a million things to do that you wouldn't have to do living in a city, like, stacking the wood or dealing with the lawn or whatever it is.
Fixing that part of your driveway that has the big hole in it, or
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's just home ownership in general, probably in the country or the city. But I would say the benefit of living in the country is that we also get to do things like sit on our porch in the early morning and listen to the coyotes, and listening for the birds, waking up in the spring and that sort of thing. So
that's true. It's pretty special. There's we have like a little bit of metal flashing around our chimney, and every spring, a flicker will come and like bash away at it as like a mating thing, I guess, to say like, hey, what's up? Look at me. And it's really, and that happened this morning for the first time. It's just like this classic sign of spring that I definitely didn't even know what a flicker was before I moved out here. So yeah. And there's something relaxing about being that sort of aware of the natural world, which is itself quite busy. So.
Indeed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one thing I missed living in the city, was looking out the window and only seeing other houses and buildings, and I wanted more sky and I wanted more trees. I found the sky. I'm working on the trees out here.
Well, they're around.
They're around. Yeah, they're small.
Yeah.
Well, there's a beautiful tree line to the west of my house, which almost every evening when the sun sets, I'm just in awe of, and I just stand there for like a whole minute going, wow.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's easy, like, sort of like kids in school, like in public school growing up, that, the rare kid that like had a pool in their backyard. And I was always like so jealous of them, but then they would only use it for like the first summer and then forget about it. And I feel that way about the water too. Like being so close to the water, I hate to say that I do take it for granted, even though I like walk down to it literally every day. It doesn't have the same impact on me as it does to someone that doesn't get to see it all the time, and then they come out and they're like, wow, like, I love being reminded of that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So you guys are getting ready to feel like you're heading to Newfoundland first, and then you're going to Europe, right?
That's
Back to
right.
Europe? Yeah.
So one of the people that we're playing with these days, Maria Petal, lives in Newfoundland, and she is in school, and so her semester kind of ends mid-April or whatever, and so we're timing the start of our tour with that. So we're going to go meet her at the end of her semester, and then do some rehearsing out there, and then head out after that.
And I know I feel like touring, I know you've toured all over the world, but I feel like you guys go to Europe more often than any other place outside of Canada. And I feel like I know why. Mostly it's the ease of travel. You can book 15 gigs and do them all in 20 days or whatever or less. And of course the appetite for Canadian music is big over there, and the people are great. But like, what other reasons are there for going back?
Those are very good reasons, and those are certainly things that are part of the story. But the main reason is that, and I'm not trying to disparage Canada in any way by saying this, but it is just a fact that there is a culture of appreciation for art and music in particular in Europe that we have less of here. And it's both cultural and systemic too. So, there's funding for artists like we have here, but there's also funding for venues, and there's funding for promoters to access, and there's just a sort of more there's more care and thought given to the arts as an ecosystem that is worth supporting through public money, and that has been true for decades in most parts of Europe, and it has had an immense effect on people's attitudes. And so the amount that people value music and are willing to like take a risk and go to a show by an artist they've never heard of before, for example, is just so, there's just so much more of that than there is in Canada. And the other thing that I really appreciate is that there's a demographic reason why I love being in Europe, which is that in many places, particularly the UK, but also Germany too, like it's not uncommon to look out into the audience and see like 18-year-olds and like 50-year-olds and everyone in between, and even some people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. There's no sort of stigma around music being for young people exclusively, the way that I think there is here. Like a lot of music fans in Canada will kind of stop going to shows after they finish university, or certainly once they like settle down and have a kid or a couple kids or something like that. It's very the amount of concerts that they attend, even if they are consider themselves a music fan, goes down like massively. Whereas in Europe, like people still find ways to do that. Partly it's because it's much easier to take your kid to a show,
right? In
a lot of cases. But partly just because people still feel like that's something important. It's not just like something I did for fun in my youth. It's like something that's a part of who I am and a part of like the scene that I believe in or whatever. So there's just a lot more kind of broad interest and support for independent music over there. And that's, that's, I would say, the biggest reason why it's the best place to tour.
Mm-hmm. Do you think 15 or 20 years ago it was different in Canada when it comes to this sort of thing? Or like, has it gotten worse in those areas in Canada?
Definitely it's gotten worse. I don't think it was, even 15 or 20 years ago, I don't think it was as good as the UK and Germany and places like that are now. But I think that definitely the impact of streaming, both music and TV and films, has had that's been massive. Like the options for people to consume culture at home on their couch are so immense now. It's hard to compete with that. Which I understand. It's also like the economy sucks. People are broke. There's all those reasons. But I think that it's also very easy to blame sort of technology. Oh, and the pandemic. That's the other thing that always gets blamed. Is like the pandemic has definitely had an impact on people's kind of like long-term desire to go out and be physically present at a show. But I don't think those are all factors that should definitely be considered, but it's not the whole story. I think it's also kind of a cultural thing. And Canada's had a lot of, like, in the past, in the era that we grew up in, the CBC felt like a much more vital thing. For example, I remember being a teenager and listening to the CBC, to shows on the CBC like Brave New Waves or stuff like that, where I would like actually learn about new music from, and that's pretty much done. So we've had a lot of funding stripped away from stuff like that, and a reduction in programming here on the island. The lack of community radio is pretty severe, and so I feel that lack. There's lots of it's a really interesting question, because there's lots of push and pull factors when it comes to like support for independent art and culture.
Totally, yeah. Your music, to me, feels like it has evolved quite a bit since the first time we met, like 20 years ago or something. But it also, to me, has also stayed very much the same. How do you think your music has evolved over the years?
Oh, I think in so many ways, it has stayed the same. I agree with both of those statements. First of all, I think it stayed the same in that I still don't really know what I'm doing. I would say that, like, with a certain amount of confidence. Like I actually like don't have a plan most of the time. I don't have a system. I've tried to make a system. For example, a system for writing songs. Like I've tried to make like a template or like a program that works for me. I know that, for example, I know that I find it easier to write when I'm like completely by myself. And so like, I have tried on various occasions to like go away by myself to like a cabin or something. And that never works, or not never works, but it doesn't reliably work. So, and I've tried a bunch of different things. Anyway, I still don't know what I'm doing. I still don't know like when I'll write a song that I can be happy with. I still feel like every time I put it on an album, I feel like it was so hard to do that it might be the last one I do. I feel exactly the same literally every time. So in that sense, it hasn't changed. I think I still am writing from the same kind of perspective as I always have. And I think that I'm more or less still writing about the same things in broad strokes that I always have. I've learned a lot of lessons along the way that I think have helped my music to evolve and kind of push against that static, never changing thing. One of those is that I think I've become a lot more particular about the way I collaborate. In the early days, this wasn't even like a conscious MO, but my goal was to just have a great time making music. And so I would just, the door was wide open. Like literally anybody that wanted to join the band was in the band. Hence
the 11 or 12 piece bands you would tour with.
Exactly. And like, and no one, unlike you, I didn't have anyone at the time being like, no, you should do this and this and this. I literally had no idea that there was like a way that you were quote unquote supposed to do things. Right. And if I had like an industry oriented person giving me advice at the time, the first thing they definitely would have said is like, you don't need 2 banjo players. You maybe don't even need 1 banjo player. And so there was just some ridiculous years where the band was like the biggest the touring party ever was 15 people. And that was financially disastrous. It meant that like I went into a preposterous amount of debt and nobody ever got paid anything. And on the other hand, it was a lot of fun because of that sort of chaos. But on the other hand, it was also musically pretty amorphous and unfocused, and for someone, I've since come to realize that what a lot of people connect with in my music is the lyrics. And having 11 or 12 instrumentalists in a band where the lyrics are the focus and the singer can't really sing and has a super low voice is not the best strategy for like highlighting the lyrics. So that's been a big, and I feel like I'm still learning that lesson. Like every show I'm just like, oh, right. I could probably just, anyway. So that's been a big evolution. So I think that musically, and I've also, I think, gotten better as a musician, as like an instrumentalist myself. And so my ability to like write parts that I'm happy with, for myself or for other people to play has improved. My sense of like playfulness around instrumentation, I think, is still there, but I'm much more confident being focused about it and making decisions and saying like, I want this, I don't want this. Whereas for at least the first 3 or 4 albums, I just said, whatever, anything goes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the same but different.
Yeah. Have you ever written a song that you were surprised that it resonated with so many people and lived on? And did you know that It Happens in Florida would still be so cherished after like decades?
No, I mean, that's the example. That song is the example that I was about to give when you asked that first question. I wrote that song 25 years ago now, and it was on like a CDR, like home recording album that I made way, way back in the days of like, burning, 25 CDs for your friends and making like handmade covers and all that kind of stuff. The golden days.
Yep.
Of CDRs. I miss those days actually, but and I put that on. That song was one of, I think that song was one of 33 songs on this album that I made back then, and they were all super short like that, and like literally 20 or 25 people in my community, which at the time was Peterborough, Ontario, heard that record, and one of those people was my friend Charlie, who was in a band at the time called the Silverhearts. And then the Silverhearts started covering that song, and that song became like a really popular part of their set. It was like their finale that they would do. And then maybe 5 or 6 years later, I was starting to work on what would become like the first kind of quote unquote official Burning Hell album. And Charlie encouraged me to re-record It Happens in Florida. And I was like, I guess I thought of it at that point. I was like, it's kind of a Silverheart song now, really. But then he pointed out that not that many people actually knew who the Silverhearts were, so it would be fine if I, reclaimed my own song and re-recorded it. And so I did that, and even at that point, I was like, I don't know, I don't think the song is very good. I still don't think the song is very good. It's like it turns on one very basic simile, and then like 7 or 8 variations of that simile over and over again with like a completely like, average chord progression. And I don't know, I mean, it's just like, to me, it's still a head scratcher that one has had so much life. But I've come around again to it because this is another way I guess I've evolved, is that I've gotten to the point where I can distance myself, I guess, from things like that, where I can appreciate that people, once you put a song out into the world, it's not yours anymore. In the sense of culture, it belongs to anyone who hears it and decides that it's meaningful to them. And if people love one thing that I wrote in my life, like that's such an incredible gift. And I really value that. And so like there was a long period of time where I was really resistant to playing that song at shows. I got so sick of it. And now I'm like, I feel like it's outside of me somehow. So I'll do it at any show. Anybody wants to hear it, I'll play it, because I love that people love it. And that's great. There's a couple other songs in the catalog like that too. Fuck the Government, I Love You has become a song like that.
So good.
Especially in Europe. And same thing. Like when I wrote that, I definitely never imagined that would have any legs at all. Or that it would become like, an
anthem?
An anthem that has like political connotation. It's not a political song. The irony of that is that it's not a political song at all, but that it would have political connotations to people in ways that like it would have never envisioned at the time. So that's been really interesting too.
Well, I think for that song, because it's such a sweet personal song, it feels like that resonates with people when they actually hear the lyrics or read the lyrics. They're like, oh my God, this is just like a sweet little story. But that tagline of "fuck the government, I love you" is, I think it just like encapsulates where all of our heads have been at over the last few years.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you probably wrote that. I don't know, did you write that before the pandemic?
Oh yeah, 2016.
Okay, yeah.
Ages ago.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Ages ago. I mean, it was, well, actually, I should say, no, it was 2015. It was actually pre-Trump first time.
Okay.
It was recorded in 2016, but yeah, it was Obama era. I mean, it was like, the government wasn't so bad back then. And then it's just been this like perpetual cycle of, like between in the UK, for example, on tour, like we started really touring the UK in earnest like the year before Brexit. And then like from Brexit until basically now, that country has been in political turmoil. And most of our audiences in the UK, as you can probably imagine, are not Tory voters. And so like that song has been like so important to audience. We can't not play that song in the UK.
Yeah.
And then same thing in the States, like my God, so it's been, that song has had a life way beyond what I imagined for it. And it's a funny thing sometimes. I'm curious to know what you think about this, because like sometimes once in a while, like I'll finish a song and I'll be like, I'm really proud of that song.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a good song. And inevitably those are the songs that get the least amount of love from other people. And I'm like, what? Like, guys, like I really put a lot of effort into that, and like this is why it's good, and nobody cares, And then like something that just came out super fast and I didn't really think about, like that's the thing that people.
Yeah, I don't know why that is, but almost every time I've like made an album and put it out into the world, someone's like, "That's the song, track 5." And I'm like, "What? Track 5?
Yeah, crazy.
That's a sad, depressing song that I just popped in as a solo. What?
Yeah,
I don't." But I think it's something about things that come easy, is that they maybe come from a place that's more pure or something, and people can latch onto that, or they're coming from a place that's purely silly and fun, and they're latching onto that or something, right? Like
the more that we try and edit, the more that's actually just like our brains interfering with our heart or something like
muddling
that. Muddying the waters.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what it is that there is some sort of like, as much as I hate this word, there is some sort of like authenticity to something that's like been done so quickly.
Yeah.
That's not there. Yeah.
What's the purpose of making art for you, do you think? Do you think why you do it now is the same reason that you've been doing it all these years, or if the reason for doing it has changed?
It's a really complicated question. It's such a good question. I'll try and give the most succinct answer I can, because this could take a while. But I think I can speak very definitely to the reason I started doing it in earnest. I started, taking my songs quote unquote seriously, or more seriously, around 2006, 2007. I was going through a pretty like epic time in my life. In personal ways, and I kind of chucked it all out, what I was doing back then, and decided I'm going to just spend 1 year just doing music, and I gave myself that sort of timeline, because I knew that it wasn't necessarily going to go well. So I thought, okay, well, I'll do this for a year and see what happens. And
I feel like that's around the time that we met each other.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, my second tour ever was my first time out on the East Coast, and that was when I met you in Charlottetown, and that was 2007. And so, right at that time, I was in this like pretty massive upheaval in my life, and I had kind of staked everything on, throwing caution to the wind and going on tour and writing songs and releasing stuff, and it went so badly. like in all sorts of ways that like responsible people would measure whether something was successful or not. It was definitely not a success. But at the end of the year, I was happier than I'd been in my entire life.
Yeah.
I was broker, but I was way happier. And I realized at that moment that like, if my choice is like doing this forever and being super broke versus going back to, the life that I'd left behind, which was like, it's not like I was making tons of money. I was
Stable.
also, but it was more stable and more conventional or whatever. And I thought, oh, well, I'll keep trying this. And so I gave myself another year, and there's just gone on since then. And I think that the fundamental reasons that I still do it are the same. And that there's nothing in the world that makes me feel more myself than writing songs and recording songs and playing songs for people. And listening to other people play songs. Like it's a wonderful universe of music that I feel so lucky to have stumbled into. And I can't imagine, I will never not do it. I will never, ever not do it. But there's another side to it, which is that, in the 2010s or whatever, right around the, coinciding with the rise of hustle culture, and the absolute collapse of the music industry as we knew it, there was this like coming together of these two terrible things. Like on the one hand, it was now impossible to make any money at all from selling records, and on the other hand, everyone was telling everybody else that they just needed to like grind it out or whatever, and that was like some like not sleeping and working as hard as you possibly can was somehow like that was like a good thing and something to aspire to. And I fell victim to it too. Like I hated it, but it, everyone was talking like that. Like whether you were like a digital nomad, quote unquote, or a musician or, selling stuff on Etsy or whatever, like the messaging was like, hustle, grind. And it's so poisonous and so toxic. And looking back on it now, it's like, I can't believe we all fell for that. Or most of us fell for that. Because it's so clearly just like a scam. I mean, it's a giant ruse and a scam and a way for capitalism to, trick us again, and put all of the responsibility on us. It's like, all the talk about how much freedom there is in being a freelancer or, or an independent musician or something like that. It's there's truth to it, I guess, but the dark side of, not having any stability or any security or whatever, is so real. And there was that moment. I feel like we're firmly out of the pandemic. Definitely killed that, which is great because it deserved to die. But there's the lingering effects of that are still there. And I think that there was a period in there where, and I can pinpoint it was like right around 2016, 2017-ish for me personally, where, up until that point, I feel like music had been mostly a net loss in financial terms for me. But around that time, it was like, I think that was like right around the first time when, I did the first tour that I actually came back with money in my pocket. Like not a ton of money, but some money. Yeah. And it was like, oh, wait, what? Wait,
hang on
a second. This could be like a job. And so I dialed back, like, all that leading up to that time, like for 10 years, it's not like I had only done music. I had always like done other things like teaching or whatever, to pay the bills. But around that 2016, 2017 time is when I started thinking like, oh, wait a second, I could actually just do music. And part of the motivation, or not the motivation, but part of the thinking around that time was definitely influenced by this culture of like, oh, just like, work twice as hard, tour twice as much, make quote unquote content more, post more, all that stuff. And it kind of worked for a little while, like kind of until the pandemic. And then the pandemic had to come along and teach me and probably a lot of people another lesson, which is like, that's fine, but that's not all there is to it. And there are a lot of other factors at play. And so the push and pull of like, this can be a job. No, this can't be a job. This can be a job. This can't be a job. Is maybe it's always going to be there. But I think through all of that, I've held on to the basic reason for making music in the first place, which is, as I said, like, it's what makes me feel like myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, I don't want to be too rosy and say like it's the thing that gives me the most joy, because sometimes it's like incredibly frustrating and difficult and dispiriting. So it's not just about that it makes me happy, because it doesn't always, but it does make me feel like who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And it's funny that when you're talking about 2016, 2017, that's kind of the time I released my last album in 2015. And I remember kind of knowing it when I was releasing the record that I didn't really want to do what was needed to do with this record. And so in the years that followed, I did a little bit of playing, but really I was just kind of like, I don't think I want to, because I was watching you guys and I was watching the Catherine McClellans and all the other people from around me were working extra hard.
Yeah.
And they were starting to see a bit of success. And I was like, but if that's what that means to be successful in that business, I don't think I want to do it, because, I was getting older and not really interested in going on long tours and sleeping on couches or whatever anymore. And I was like, but that's what would be needed in the streaming world. And I was like, okay, you don't want to do that. So I just started backing away. I'm like, what else can I do? But I found other things that I could do and kept music for me, mostly, although I still do play and still do write, because it is what makes me feel like myself.
Yeah, I think, I would go out on a limb and venture to say that the same thing is probably true for anyone, certainly songwriters. I think there's very few songwriters out there who got into it for any reason other than it was just something that it was like a way, it was the way that they knew best of expressing who they were, what was going on inside them, that made the most sense to them. And it's the easiest thing to hold on to because it's always there and it doesn't cost any money to live inside your own head.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And so it's always going to be a part. Yeah, it's always going to be a part of. If everything stopped tomorrow, I would still be writing songs. Like the other part of it too, like you touched on that. Watching people work extra hard to make it happen. The bitterest irony of all of that, looking back on it now, is that like what we were really doing was working extra hard to get even less than of the pie or whatever than we could have got before, in terms of the fact that like, fewer people are buying physical albums. And now, the shift around that time in music industry terms, when everyone started saying like, oh, you can't sell records anymore, but you can still make money on tour, so go out on tour. It's like, well, that excludes such a massive number of musicians who, like, beyond not just not wanting to tour, but like aren't able to tour, like aren't, because of other commitments, because of family, because of disability, because of health, because of all sorts of reasons. Like, that can't possibly be the advice.
Yeah, that can't be the only way.
No,
to do this.
that's I find that so kind of irresponsible, even kind of reprehensible when I hear music industry people say that kind of thing. It's just like, oh, that people still love live music, so get out there and play 200 dates a year. It's like, what? Like, I mean, sure, but there's just got to be more. There's got to be other alternatives, and I think everyone's very aware of that now.
Yeah. How do you navigate the interplay of writing songs for yourself versus writing songs that your fans will expect of you or that you think they will like? Or do you feel that pull at all?
That's such a good question. No, I feel the pull. I think about that a lot. And, going back to something we talked about earlier, that's the thing of like, when an audience like latches onto a song that you didn't really think anything of, sometimes that's because you didn't write that song for an audience in the first place. And for me, It Happens in Florida was definitely like that. Like, I was not thinking about anything other than just goofing around on a keyboard when I wrote that song. And even though the best possible advice that I could give to any aspiring songwriter is to never think about an audience and only write for yourself, it is actually impossible advice to follow once you have some kind of audience, even if your audience is like 10 people and one of them is your mom. it is impossible to not think about how a song will be received while you're writing it. And it can be the worst kind of Achilles heel to a songwriter, because we're all probably terrible, except for the sociopaths among us, but like we're all terrible self editors and, self-haters when it comes to what we do. Because that's part of, I think, being a little bit sensitive as a songwriter is like, feeling bad about yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than the feeling of like there's enough of me that's like, you're bad, this is bad. There's enough of that voice in my head naturally. And then at the minute that I get to a point in a song where if I'm not sure what to do in a certain part, like the idea will creep into my head that everyone's going to hate this, or no, this is not, this is not it. So it's a constant struggle. I would love to, be able to flip a switch and turn off the part of my brain that thinks about any kind of external audience, because it definitely would produce not necessarily better songs, but it would produce more songs.
Yeah.
Like I would write 1,000 times more songs
Yeah.
if I was never thinking about an audience. And yeah, having said that though, like I have come to a point now where I'm less cruel and unforgiving to myself. I will, on the one hand, like if I know there's a feeling, and probably you have it too, probably most people who write songs have this, there's like a gut feeling when you're writing a song and it's not working out, or it's like it's a struggle that I get sometimes, and I'm like, okay, this is a don't worry about this one, just throw it on the scrap pile, or like don't delete it, but like move on to the next thing. Kind of like if you're reading a book and it's not grabbing you within the first like 30 pages, maybe like you really, really, really want to finish that book for some, reason. Maybe it's a book club thing or something like that, whatever. But the best course of action usually is to move on to a different book.
Yep.
But I don't beat myself up for that as much as I used to. I don't immediately feel like a failure if like one idea doesn't pan out, because I would say honestly, the ratio is about 1 in 100.
Yeah.
Like for every song that I finish and I'm happy with, there are 99 other songs that I have left in some stage of completion because I don't think they're that great. It's a tough one. And then of course, like you just never know. Like when you take that batch of songs out on the road or put it on an album or whatever, you just never know. Like, are people going to connect with them at all? There's one song on our new record that I actually, like I fought to take off the record. And I was convinced by everyone else to leave it on. And a lot of people have responded to the album that that's their favorite song. I'm like, clearly I should not be in charge. That's the lesson, So I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah. I used to not know what I had. You can get a pretty good sense when you write a song of whether it's something that you're happy with or you feel good about, or you've done what you kind of set out to do. But at the same time, I wouldn't really know what I had until I played it for somebody. So usually I'd take it to an open mic night or what have you and just play it. And it wasn't about the reaction that I would get from people or people talking about it or letting me know what they thought. It was the physical act of playing it in front of other people for me to know how I felt about it, which is really weird. And I don't know why that is, but I guess just because when you're used to playing music for other people, you want to feel what it feels like to play that song in front of people.
Yeah.
To know what it really is.
If there's a connection there, or if there's like some, no, I know exactly what you mean. And I've never, I wish I did this more often. I say this every now and then. It's like, well, one day I want to write a bunch of songs and like go on tour with those songs and then come back and record the songs that went over the best, or like that I felt the best about, after all that. Because it does change. My relationship to a song, it always changes after playing it live.
Yep.
And I know a lot of artists who do that, who take that approach. And I'm forever kind of in awe of that process because I never seem to pull it off. But it's a good one. It's true. Like, reception is so much of, like, my reception of an audience's reception of what I'm doing is so much of what shapes my feeling about the performance or the the songs that I'm presenting or whatever. And yeah, it's a mysterious thing. It is a really mysterious thing. And I don't know, like there's no system, there's no science to it. It's all just heart, I think.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, very mysterious.
Mysterious and all about heart. I think that's a good place to leave it.
All right. Thanks so much for
Thank
these
you.
questions. It's been really thought-provoking. I'm going to be thinking about these, and I'm probably going to be writing you with like, oh no, I should have said this, but I won't do that.
Well, we can do another.
Yeah, we'll have to do another where I correct myself on all the things I said, but yeah. No, it's really, I love talking about this kind of thing. It's really, I think it's really important on a number of levels for people to think more deeply about art and the reasons that it's a part of our lives and something we hopefully want to protect.
Mm-hmm. And foster amongst everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
I wondered what would be the worth of my words in the world if I write them and then recite them, are they worth being heard? Just because I like them, does that mean that I should mic them and see what might unfurl? And I think of the significance of my opinions here. Is it significant to be giving them? Does anybody care? Just because I'm into this, does that mean that I should live like it? And really, do I dare? Art, I want you. Art, you make it pretty hard not to. And my heart is trying hard here to follow you, but I can't always tell if I ought to. So I pondered the point of my art in this life. If I make it, will someone take it and think that it's genuine? Would they be glad that I did, 'cause they got something good out of it? Would they leave me and be any more inspired? And I question the outcome of the outpouring of myself. If I tell everyone my stories, would this keep me healthy and well? Would it give me purpose and to this world some sort of service? Is it worth it? How could I tell? Art, I want you. Art, you make it pretty hard not to. And my heart is trying hard here to follow you.